And so many people with ADHD are focusing on what they don't have, what they can't do. And that's mainly because the world around them, the 80% who are neurotypical versus the 20% of us who are neurodiverse in one way or another, we get a lot of criticism. We get a lot of, frustration around us. For example, we'll have 1,000 ideas a day. And so if we're working in a company and we're in a team meeting, we're going to have, what about this? I've got an idea. We could do that to that. And they're like, okay, we were just talking about this right now. Yeah, but that has an effect on that. We will spot links between things. So many people so many ADHDers come with, these are smart people. These are people who've got incredible ideas. They may already have a business running, or they're wanting to start a business. They've been working for a company. They want a side hustle, or they've got a side hustle and they want to move it on. ADHDers in their inboxes with 40,000 unread messages. I've seen a lot of those. But so I worked out a way for me without knowing I had ADHD. This is back 25 years ago. I came up with a way of using my calendar and my inbox.
Welcome back to the Hustle and Grind podcast, the show where we dig into why real entrepreneurs trade comfort for conviction. This isn't about vanity metrics or overnight success. It's about the stories behind building a reputation that actually matters. I'm your host, Andrew, keynote architect, platform builder, and fellow founder in the trenches. Today, I'm sitting down with Max Lawrence, the successful lifelong entrepreneur, ADHD entrepreneurship coach, and creator of Into Calm. Max's work is filling a major gap, helping ADHD adults transform time, communication, and task management quickly and practically with his unique and highly effective organizational method. He's also empowered the future of work by training virtual assistants to work effectively with his niche clientele. Today, Max is here to expose the shortcomings of traditional ADHD coaching, sharing his story of a late diagnosis at 44, and explaining how AI will empower neurodivergent individuals to outperform in entrepreneurship. We're going deep on shame, rejection sensitivity, and why the balance between neurotypical and neurodivergent workers is about to flip. So, Max, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. You speak on a topic that is really dear to my heart, and that's ADHD. And I think a lot of people don't understand what that is. We hear these terms, we hear it spread around. Oh my God, my ADHD is acting up. But we don't understand as entrepreneurs that this is actually a ninja skill we have. Like, this is something we don't think like everyone else does, and that's not a bad thing. And so, again, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it, Max.
Andrew, thank you so much for having me. And it is a ninja skill, most definitely, which comes with a bunch of like any good tool, it's not made for every situation. And it's something that I talk about a lot with people and with people I've been coaching over the years. It's that kind of knife edge situation where on the one hand, it can be saving grace. Mm-hmm. And certainly in my life, I was very successful in my 20s and 30s with businesses that I built. I mean, we were talking a little bit before, but the whole thing about like not getting a job because we're not really very good employees. We're somehow we're awful. Yeah, I mean, I've known some people who have literally lost more jobs in a year than there are months in the year, and but I wasn't diagnosed until I was 44. I'm 50 now, and so I went through my childhood, my 20s, my 30s, and half of my 40s, not really knowing about ADHD. But I instinctively knew at 18 that I went and spent a weekend at a university. My girlfriend at the time was a year older, and so she was already at university. And I remember spending a weekend at on campus and that kind of thing. And I remember coming away thinking, I don't think I'll survive this, because they're only kind of learning for a few hours a week, as it were, and then there's a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, a lot of sleeping. And I was like, I knew myself, I need excitement. And that was not exciting to me. And so I actually had an opportunity to go and live in North Africa, in Morocco, when I was 18, initially working kind of on the other end of my dad's travel business. And it was super, super stimulating. But what I was saying was that I knew instinctively, without knowing I had ADHD, I just knew, it's like this attraction to shiny, fizzing things, and university, I knew I'd get bored or I'd get thrown out.
Well, it's not wired the way that we learn. We learn in a very, very different style, and it works for some people. That's great. And a lot of times we're good students because we learn how to adapt to the system, but it's just not designed for us. That's why I said, we're also really bad employees. It's not a system that's designed for how our brain works at all.
Yeah.
Our brain is really different. Yeah.
Really different. And if you go back to the kind of, when we were hunter-gatherers, however long ago that was, we were the top dog hunter-gatherers because we had that ability to be chilling out, lying under trees in the forest, and then click, a crack of a branch somewhere, and we could go into that hunting chase mode, pick the spear up, off we go. It's like a switch from relaxing, digesting, to suddenly there's some danger potentially, and we are like that, and that translates today into ADHD is getting on very well in certain types of jobs, for example, as paramedics or police or stockbrokers or, anything that's kind of got unpredictability about it, and where, there's a change of direction on a regular basis, on an predictably unpredictable basis. But that hunter-gatherer thing, we were really good at that, that intensity in the moment. But when farming came along and we had to plant seeds at the right time of year, remember to water them, remember to keep watering them, remember to harvest them at the right time of year before they get burnt out. We're not good at that because we don't have our eye on time, because we don't experience time in the same way that neurotypicals do. I always kind of describe it as ADHD as we kind of feel time is this bubblegum type of we think it's this elastic stuff that kind of fits to us. But actually, it's not. Tick, tock, tick. It moves at a regular pace, but we don't perceive that. So turning up to water the plants at the right time or harvest them, not good. And today's world that we have to turn up to work or turn up to school, having done the right things, remembering the right things to bring with us, it doesn't fit with us because we're still in that programming of being excellent kind of improvisers and switchers from one thing to another. Yeah. And a lot of people misunderstand ADHD to be the name is terrible, obviously, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. There is not attention deficit. It's that we have variable attention. We can pay more attention or more intense attention to something that we are motivated or being stimulated by, much better attention than any neurotypical, but we can't really choose when and where. Mm-hmm. We don't have that ability to just be told, okay, you're going to focus on this whether you like it or not. Oh, if it's that, I know I'm not going to be able to focus. If it's something that I am, I can be locked in, a bomb could go off down the street and I probably wouldn't hear it.
Yeah. That hyper focus. And I think that's one of the things that's really this massive benefit for us, is because we can jump down the rabbit holes of a lot of different things. And it allows us to be able to research very quickly. Our brain works at 1.5 times speed. It's like watching YouTube at 1.5 times speed all the time.
It's too slow.
Yeah, and we could process it. I get bored sometimes when I'm talking to people that aren't neurodivergent, because sometimes it's like, okay, I've already absorbed this. Let's keep going. Let's go on to the next topic here. I'm ready to go. I've already got this. Yeah, and it takes a bit to get used to just, kind of backing down. But that's something that really helps us out a lot. And so I think that's one of the positives.
Yeah. I definitely have, since my diagnosis, it's incredible how, looking back, the people who I became kind of best friends with, my best bunch of friends who didn't necessarily know each other, but it's the sort of the fact that so many of the people that I really regularly had great conversations with were also ADHD, whether they knew it then or not, or do now or not. And then having dived into ADHD coaching and working with ADHDers, I love it because there's something about talking with another ADHD. We interrupt each other a lot. We go off tangents. I mean, I don't know. People probably, for those who don't know, why do ADHDers interrupt? It's not because we're rude. It's because we have had a thought that we would like to bring to the conversation, but because we know that within about 8 to 10 seconds, it will have evaporated from our minds and we won't be able to find it again. It's either it's going to come out now or it's never, or I'm going to be going, no, why didn't I say it? So
you're being generous. 8 to 10
yeah,
seconds.
I know. Yeah, it can be 3 seconds. Yeah.
But that's the thing. And I think, as entrepreneurs, again, and I'd like you to go into a little bit more about how entrepreneurs, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are neurodivergent, like to some level, maybe not some as much as others, but it's our ninja skill. We're really, really good at this. And I think for most of our lives, we've been told that this is a bad thing. We have a disorder. We have this, I can't pay attention to anything, when it's really, there's this massive number of misconceptions. So go into that about what was your entrepreneurial journey specifically, and how has ADHD actually helped you with it?
Well, so my first, out of school, I for a few months, I kind of learned the other end of selling holidays in my dad's business. He ran a really great small company that specialized in holidays to Morocco. And so and then I went out there to set up an office, and, it was constant drama and chaos. It's a very chaotic place. And, but I thrived in that because I'm good in situations, and when stuff comes flying at me, unpredictably. So there's this thing, I mentioned that ADHDers do well in things like, jobs where stuff changes rapidly. But that's because normal people's dopamine levels are kind of here, let's say. And we run at we have this lower availability of dopamine. So there's that gap. Now, when a normal person who's starting here, if the building is on fire and the alarms are going off in the building, theirs goes, whoa, up here. And they turn to jelly. It's like, oh my God, what? But the ADHDer who's starting lower, also it rises. But we end up at that useful stage. Like they're normally useful with theirs there, but we're running down here. So we're kind of not paying attention. But bang, the building's on fire. It comes up, and we're in that place where we can actually communicate, and we're calm, and we're like, okay, guys, just stay calm, keep going that way. It's all going to be fine. We're great in a crisis, So, and that, that kind of helps me to understand it. That's how I've helped other people to understand it. But it's important to understand that we have these, as you called it, these kind of superpowers, these abilities. And so many people with ADHD are focusing on what they don't have, what they can't do. And that's mainly because the world around them, the 80% who are neurotypical versus the 20% of us who are neurodiverse in one way or another, we get a lot of criticism. We get a lot of, frustration around us. And so, of course, the focus when you're kind of dealing with that from the inside is that's what we're being exposed to, this kind of frustration about how we can't do that or can't turn up on time or don't do this the same way as them. But actually, the positives of it are massive, but it really relies on being in an environment where one is allowed to use them. Because for example, we'll have 1,000 ideas a day. And so if we're working in a company and we're in a team meeting, we're going to have, boom, what about this? I've got an idea. We could do that to that. And they're like, okay, we were just talking about this right now. Yeah, but that has an effect on that. We will spot links between things. We're great pattern, we spot patterns where other people are less likely to. But in an environment where you are working under a boss who is trying to get certain things done, and we don't come up necessarily with the right stuff at the right time, and we interrupt, and we turn up a little bit late for the meeting, and we either talk too much or we go silent because we're bored and we're like looking at the ceiling, spider on the ceiling, But so a lot of people are focused in, unfortunately, because they are not in a neurodiverse, friendly environment. Those superpowers end up becoming the source of criticism. And that's the sad thing. Now, I didn't know I had ADHD, but I was very lucky in that I went off to a very chaotic place. And so it kind of camouflaged my chaos, because actually I looked organized amongst, with a backdrop of Morocco behind me, a country of people who don't wear watches, don't tell the time, turn up late for everything. I had this kind of, quite organized look and feel about me. But it wasn't really there. And so what I wanted to describe is that I was out there for 12 years and I built several businesses, a production company, 2 boutique hotels, small boutique hotels, but they were very successful. And when I sold up and I came back to live in the UK, which I did, I'm going to raise it right now, but the main reason for me coming back was to get sober, because I had, as many ADHDers have experienced, we are 5 times more likely to get hooked on stuff. Anything that produces dopamine, when you've been starved of dopamine, and whether you have a beer or a joint or it's gambling or it's porn or whatever, dopamine generation, we're just going to go, give me more. So we can talk about that, but that's the reason I came back to London. But I'd sold up and I had a team of 50 people working for me and around me. And this was, I got to London. I basically became a one-man entrepreneur again. And not being in Morocco, where if you turn up late, like a week late, nobody really bats an eyelid. But in London, you know what the British are like. So it's like that. And I was missing opportunities. I was missing meetings. I was missing the dentist appointment, whereas I'd have turned up 20 minutes late in Morocco and the girl there would have said, it's okay, just sit there and we'll slot you in behind. In London, it's like, you missed it. And I was like, can I get another appointment? Yeah, in a month. And I started to say to myself, what's going on? Because I'd been really successful and I hadn't been exposed to these negative comments. And it baffled me because I hadn't felt disorganized up until then. And that's because I was scaffolded by this team who would kind of say to me, right, you've got to get to that and jump in the van, the driver's going to take you there. And, I was kind of helped. And this is what we have at school. At school, we walk it, a parent drops you in front of school, you follow the crowd, you're into the first lesson, then they go, okay, off to maths, and then off to science, and then off to lunch, and then off to, gymnastics or whatever. And you just follow along and you kind of get from place to place on time. But when ADHDers move on to go to college, university, or into a job where there is nobody to wake you up to, make sure that you get there on time. And then when you do get there, even if you get there on time, the next thing you're like, our time management is poor. Mm-hmm. And so when I got to London, I was just confronted with this new me that I didn't really recognize. And I had no idea about ADHD. But so I decided I really need to sort this out. And so I kind of took it upon myself to okay, what's going wrong? Because I was using a Moleskine kind of week on 2 pages, and I'd write everything in it diligently. But then once the book is under the sofa or under a magazine, out of sight, out of mind, I wouldn't look, and I realized quickly that I needed a book that could shout at me. So I started, it was around 2004-05. So the iPhone was coming along and I thought, perfect. Okay. Digital calendar that can make noise. So I can put everything in it and it can go beep, beep, beep. And I go, what the hell is it? Oh, I've got to go now. It was like, it made sense to me. It was like, this is the solution. Because I would write stuff in the book, but I wouldn't look at the book or not look at the book at the right time. And that's useless. So I started experimenting with the digital calendar and I failed miserably. And this went on for a couple of years. I'm a problem solver. So I was trying to work it out and I tried so many different things. And in the end, I came up with it was all about chopping stuff off. It was there are all these very clever apps that were coming out, which do so many clever things. And I tried those things. And I worked out that actually those apps were worse for me even than the book, because all those clever kind of that functionality that can do this and can do that, it was just distraction. I would just go down rabbit holes around trying to program it, and I'd get lost, and then I'd get frustrated, and then I'd just go, forget it. And I worked out that my best bet was the simplest thing. It was a very straightforward, basic, comes with every gadget that anybody owns, regular calendar. And I also realized that to-do lists were my absolute enemy. So when I started coaching people, so many people so many ADHDers come with, these are smart people. These are people who've got incredible ideas. They may already have a business running, or they're wanting to start a business. They've been working for a company. They want a side hustle, or they've got a side hustle and they want to move it on. But their big thorn in their foot very often is the whole overwhelm due to poor time management. So the poor management of time, i.e. the calendar, and the poor management of communications, which is basically the inbox. ADHDers and their inboxes with 40,000 unread messages. I've seen a lot of those. But so I worked out a way for me, without knowing I had ADHD, this is back 25 years ago. I came up with a way of using my calendar and my inbox, which worked for the ADHD brain. Unbeknown to me, I did not know I had ADHD, but it worked with my brain. And for like 15 years, until I would finally work out that I had ADHD, I ran on rails, and I was able to, I built a travel company similar to my dad's after the hotels, and I had a small team of people selling for me, and I taught them my calendar and email inboxes system because, well, I didn't know it was just for ADHDers, but it worked for them as well. And so when I started coaching, people would come with this problem and I would teach them in a few hours, one-to-one, demonstrating how I do it. And it's really very simple, but it's very specific. There are very few rules because I realize that ADHDers, we do not like rules. We have a strong, defiant side to us. So, and so I started teaching it to people, literally over a couple of days, and they would come back 2 weeks later and say to me, "This is amazing. I have had I call them micro failures. That thing where you turn up to the swimming lesson and the teacher says, "Great, you came to the swimming lesson without a swimsuit. Why would you want to bring a swimsuit to a swimming lesson?" Those I call them micro failures. And then the micro failure is followed by that negative comment by the teacher. And they may be saying it in jest. It's not meant to hurt us, but you know what? We're all born with this self-esteem around the size of a melon. Let's think of it like that. And I always think of those little negative comments that we receive from teachers, parents, siblings, friends for not turning up, being late, forgetting. I think of it like a little goblin chipping away with a hammer and chisel at my melon-sized self-esteem. And basically, there is evidence to show that the ADHD young person, by the time we're like 25, apparently we have received, on average, 10,000 more negative comments than a non-ADHDer. Understandably. And let's say they were not meant to hurt us, but the reality is that self-esteem, by the time we're 25, it's the size of a raisin. Mm-hmm. And a lot of ADHDers will not really know that it's the size of a raisin. Some do, some don't. That's very much a personality thing and comes down to kind of ego and how we're set up. And the ego it's good. The ego is the thing, I always describe it as like this rubber sort of cushion around us, which enables us to bounce sort of back from those incoming negative comments. But the reality is, a lot of it, the majority of ADHDers are walking around with low self-esteem because we might be very successful in certain areas of our lives, but be having micro failures regularly in others. Now, the amazing thing to me, was how people, when I would teach them this very straightforward method, they'd come back and say, "I have had virtually no micro failures in this week." And what does that mean? I realized that it wasn't just about organization. This had this incredible knock-on effect. It's like a waterfall. Once you sort out the time management and the communication management, we can basically turn up to things on time, the right day, the right week. I've turned up to things the wrong week, even the wrong month, with the right stuff, remembering the person's name. And the other side of it is the inbox. If we're not on our messages, then we are missing out on all sorts of opportunities. People are like, "What the hell? Third time I've written to you. Oh, sorry." So the micro failures stop, the negative comments therefore stop, and you know what happens? The self-esteem, in my experience, working with people, and it was my experience once I, sorted my own out, and I didn't have anybody to help me. I just had to work it out. But it grows back really fast. So the benefits of getting time management right and getting the inbox and we have so many messaging apps and stuff now, having a very straightforward system for that means we don't make those micro failures, which means we don't let people down, and which means we can esteem ourselves more higher than we have been. And that knocks on to our relationships, whether they're work relationships, whether it's a relationship with our parents or our friends, our romantic partners, our children. It's hard when you're sending someone messages and they're never responding. People understandably get fed up, or they feel, neglected. And so what I realized was that this little method that I came up with around the calendar and the inbox didn't just make someone organized, but it actually was affecting their relationships, their lives, their productivity. And, all of that is based in our self-esteem. If you've got good self-esteem, well, you can weather the storms better. And you can volunteer for things. Like, I knew that when I came to London and I was just failing to turn up, I shied away from going, yeah, I'll volunteer to come, who's coming swimming on Sunday? Who's coming to the racetrack on Sunday? And I would kind of stop saying, yeah, I'm in, because I didn't want any more negative comments, because I knew that it was likely that I would forget or turn up with the wrong whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's sad, because, this is what a lot of ADHDers live through. Because, as you were saying, we have these incredible, powerful skills of ideas, we know what to do, we know how to do it. It's just doing it at the right time, or doing it at all. Procrastination is a huge thing. And this little method that I came up with helped me with my procrastination. I won't go into the whole thing, but it's available. I've made it now as a mini course. Yeah. And so people can, because I wanted to bring this to more ADHD. Like, I can't coach all the people that I would like to and who would want me to. So I've made it available just as a watch it thing. But we are powerful thinkers. We are very creative. We are problem solvers, and we are great. As I mentioned, we're great to have around it in crises, and that makes for a great entrepreneur. You combine ideas with know-how, people skills, that kind of unfiltered ability to communicate just about with anybody if they'll listen. And that's why we kind of work well with other ADHDers as well, because we, like you and me before, we were, yeah. It's chemistry, and the chemistry doesn't work for people, whether they're working in a shoe shop or in a bank, or they're working, in a team kind of thing. We can work well in teams, but we need to be doing what we do well. And this is often the way when you're in a job and you go in for you think the right reason, because maybe you go and work in a mountain bike shop because you love mountain biking. Thing is, working in a mountain bike shop does not mean, it doesn't really have any connection with mountain bikes. You're doing sales, and you've got to achieve targets, and you've got to file sales reports, and you've got to do stock keeping and admin. That's not something we get on very well. Sorry.
No, I wanted to get into that quickly, because a lot of times we have people around us that need to support us. And that's one of the things that you're really good is training VAs on how to deal with us and how to be able to keep us in our lane and, make us the most effective person. So talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah. So this came out of, as I was coaching more and more entrepreneurs with ADHD, there was a thing that kept coming up, which is like delegating. And so you want somebody to delegate stuff to that really you can't focus on. Somebody else could do it much better than you. So I started looking to introduce, I remember one of my clients to a VA, and I started looking, because I'd never had I'd had assistants in my business, but VAs are kind of a fairly recent thing. It's a PA on screen. So I couldn't find any really who had the knowledge around ADHD. You see, what I did experience a couple of times was introducing someone to a VA, and the relationship falls apart very quickly because the VA says, okay, great. You want me to do your social media and your bookkeeping? Okay, for the bookkeeping, you just got to send me 12 months of invoices, 12 in and out, 12 months of bank statements. Can you get me that? And yeah, sure. And like a week later, the VA's like, I'm still waiting for that. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'll get it to you today. And then 3 weeks later, your accountant says, I need the bookkeeping. So the ADHD is like, oh my God, calling the VA. Where's the bookkeeping? She's like, you still haven't given. And then the ADHD negative comments and overreaction, emotional dysregulation, and we say something either in the wrong tone or the wrong words, and the VA is like, oh, I don't think I want to work like this anymore. And we're not all angry, but, there's a bit of blame. There's a bit of, we're pissed off at ourselves, but it comes out the wrong way sometimes. So that relationship between the VA, who was there to help us, falls apart. And so I was seeing that that introducing an ADHD entrepreneur to just any old VA, it didn't have legs. So I took a VA, a girl in her 30s who was interested in ADHD because she has a nephew with ADHD, and I trained her in the basics of understanding how we function and how, therefore, to preempt those situations that will, if not, just rip this thing apart and make it not successful. And anyway, it's a simple, straightforward training. I do it in like under 4 hours. And she loved it, and she was like, could you train my whole team? So we did that on Zoom, and then I kept doing it. And in the end, I just, so I did the same, I created a little 4-hour training, which is basically a recording of what I was doing on Zoom. And it's available now for any virtual assistants who, by the way, should be looking at the ADHD entrepreneur market, because we are fantastic clients for virtual assistants. Virtual assistants, they have their different niches and stuff, but if anybody, and I know a lot of virtual assistants are looking for more clients, and they want clients who stay, who don't just do, a couple of months worth and then. The thing is, if you work with an ADHD client and you can actually respond in a way that works for that ADHD client, that ADHD client is very unlikely to ever let you go. In fact, they may end up marrying you.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're the person that keeps us together and to be able to help us out and knows how our brain processes information. Fastest way for, it's like for me, the fastest way to irritate me is to like 15 million little details. It's like, no, that's not how my brain works. I am hiring you to figure this out. I want you to figure this out. So when they get it right, and any virtual assistant, pretty much can understand how we function, and literally the next day. And so they get a training and they get a certification and they go on my directory. So because I have a lot of ADHDers looking for virtual assistants, so I add all the people. I think I've trained about 80 now. Virtual assistants, and they come out of it and they're like, wow, my business is they tell me their business is basically all ADHDers now, because they found their niche. And once you can coach one ADHD, you can coach a lot, and the recommendations flow. So it's a great market for virtual assistants who are in a super competitive market, because there is a massive pool of flailing, struggling ADHD entrepreneurs who are brilliant at doing what they love, but those other things, it's not happening, and it needs to happen. So it's an exciting way for any virtual assistant to boost their business and really hit a very large and rapidly growing, because there's so much more, so many people are more aware of the fact that they struggle with executive functions now, ADHD, and so it's a massive market, and it's there for the taking. Entrepreneurs. Yeah, to add into that, I've seen so many entrepreneurs who would just go through VAs like their water, and that's the main thing.
And they never serve a purpose, because it falls apart before the results can kick in. Whereas what you need is the results to be kicking in day one. That first conversation, if you can gain the trust of that ADHD by showing them that you get their brain and that you're okay with it because you're prepared, and here are some strategies, and you come in like that, and the ADHD feels reassured and like, this sounds actually like it could work, and then it does.
Nice. Awesome, man. Max, We're at the end of our show, but thank you so much for being on today. I think it's a really important topic, and it's something that like you said, a lot of us have had that self-esteem kind of chipped away at because it's a disorder. It's a bad thing. We're that kid that talks too much. But there's actually something good. And I think for me, once I found that tribe of entrepreneurs going, oh, wait, there's other people that think like I do. And here's where I'm supposed to fit. Yeah. Made things so much easier for me. So anyway, thank you so much for being on the show today. If you want to learn more, just make sure to check out the show notes. You're going to see links to be able to see not only the intercom method that you use, but also the training for VAs. Awesome, man. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Andrew, for having me. It's great. And a big hello to all ADHDers out there.
You have a place.
Awesome. You have a place. Take care.
Thank you, man. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle and Grind podcast, where we unpack what it really takes to build something that matters. If today's conversation hit home, do me a favor. Share it with someone who's in the trenches too. And if you're building your own brand, platform, or message and want help turning that story into serious authority, head over to theauthorityforge.com to see how we can help. Until next time, keep showing up, keep shipping, and keep chasing the work that sets you on fire. I'm Andrew, and this was the Hustle and Grind podcast.